I'm Dyer, and this is the Real Football Factories. I played Tommy Johnson in the movie The Football Factories, which was all about football violence. Fucking nutters. But that was just acting. Now I'm on a journey around the country meeting the real firms who have mass offs at football matches for real. No fake blood, no stuntmen, no makeup. This time it's just me and the country's hardest hooligans. Let's go! We're all in! Let's go! I meet the real top boys who tell you the score. Welcome to the Real Football Factories, where you learn the real stories behind the country's top football firms. I'm going to be taking you on a journey deep into the brutal and brash world of terrace culture. For this show, you're on my manor, Luton Town. For me, the most exciting, vibrant, and quite simply the greatest city on the planet. Do you want to know why? Because here we do things with a bit of style, touch of panache. You know what I mean?
In our city, there's 1,000 things I want to say to you.
Men like to fight.
Well, I shouldn't think they can make a drug like it. I should think, let me tell you, if I could bottle it and keep it, I would have done.
It's the biggest buzz in the world, you know what I mean?
We're going to examine the fashion and culture surrounding these firms. Is it about modern violence? Of course it is. It's a lifestyle, a fashion, a culture. It's a London thing.
Supporters of Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur were all set to do plenty of shouting, but they needn't really have been in such a hurry.
In London, there's a dozen teams, and fans are spread out across the city. Opposing fans are in the same street, the same workplace, the same family. Their hooligan fans are known as firms. When it comes to a league table, there are a few obvious contenders for top spot. I'm talking, of course, about the firms at Chelsea, Millwall, West Ham and Spurs. We're going to chart the history of the hooligan gangs from the 70s up to the present day. The media is fascinated with the hooligan, and we're going to meet top boys who became celebrities in the underground world of the football firms.
I think it's useful to see football fans and similar groups as being like a tribe. You know, what has characterised most of our history from the Stone Age upwards. Smallish groups, no more than usually about 150. There will be particular patterns of social allegiance, social bonding, positions of status, which define you as a person in terms of the tribe to which you belong.
Ever since the Teddy Boys in the 50s, teenage tribes have fought in the capital over territory and respect. In the 60s, London's mods and rockers took their battle onto the beaches of Brighton and Margate.
Breaking rocks in a hot sun. I fall below in a low one.
But a new tribe was emerging as the swinging 60s came to an end that would take their aggression onto the football terraces. By the end of the 60s, football violence was soaring across the capital, and a new working class movement was becoming its identity. Teenagers were gripped by the aggression and fashion of skinhead culture. DM boots and braces became the new uniform for the football hardener.
Al Capone guns don't argue!
How many skinheads are there on the train?
Must be about 50 or 60 of us.
About 50 or 60 skinheads?
There's enough to cause damage, but there won't be any damage.
Skinheads evolved out of mod, and obviously there was a violent side to mod. The fighting was very much part of what the skinhead culture became, and by 1968 every estate in Britain had a skinhead gang. And your main preoccupations were listening to reggae, to getting drunk and having a fight. And you'd go out on a Saturday night expecting to have a fight, looking forward to have a fight. The early skins weren't particularly racist. In fact, you look at those skinhead gangs in London and there were always Afro boys. There was always black skinheads in the groups.
Now I want to ask you, obviously being a skinhead now, being a black skinhead, I mean, how does that work? Because, I mean, obviously I'm a bit naive about it. I would have thought skinheads running about swastikas just absolute racist. Clearly not.
No, that happened in the 70s. Don't get me wrong. That was about in the 70s. Right. Coming through the 60s. I mean, I was going to football probably at 12. My mum and dad didn't know we were going there. We were supposed to be around my mates' house. For me, music and football was two very important factions. I mean, they married together. All the rude boy tunes were kicking in then, and the two went hand in hand. The look itself was designed to look obviously aggressive because you've got this tribal thing going on within the football field. And that is a classic Harrington jacket. There you go.
Would you have it tighter? Or would that be about the right
It all
size?
Depends. I mean,
I like my stuff all, you know what I mean?
Personally,
slim.
it would be probably slightly looser, but
oh, really?
but the actual style at the time, I thought would have been a bit closer than that. But obviously, for the chappies that want to swing a few fists around, they would have had it a bit looser.
Yeah, yeah. It's a nice little number, that. I think I'm going to treat myself to that little number. I fancy I'll take that away with me. Can I have this then, son?
Football is where it hit home, it's how it spread, because how else are they going to see the fashions? How's the North going to see what's the fashion in London? Yeah, people didn't travel them days. Later on, the casuals, which is still affected today, when you look at the Stone Island and the Aquascooting guys, you know what I mean? All right, they're copying something they've seen on the terraces.
See, I'd have collars up, mate.
Yeah, no worries.
I'd have a bit of that, you know what I mean?
Nice lining.
No, that is a nice smother. I'll tell you what, Billy Bright, Frank Harper, he wears one of these in a football factory. Didn't take it off once, mine, I must say. But good look. See you later. When the football terraces were established as the setting for these tribal battles, the football firms, the real football factories, came to the fore. I'm a West Ham fan through and through, but in the football factory, I played Tommy Johnson, a Chelsea hooligan. The climax to the film was a run-in with Millwall's top firm, which was shot in the alleyways around Millwall's ground at the Den. In reality, of course, the club has had a feared reputation for more than 30 years. I'm going to meet one of their top boys from this period. It's my first time back to the scene since making the film, and being West Ham, I'm entering enemy territory. Bob?
Pleased to meet you, Dan.
Pleasure, Bob.
Pleasure,
Thanks
mate.
for talking to me, son.
Pleasure, mate.
So I'm going to start off by saying this is where we filmed the football factory, obviously, right?
Yeah.
That's where I got absolutely battered by 10 of your mob.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I remember is this was all cleared off because it, obviously because everyone was rolling about like lunatics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to ask you now, Bob, what did you make of the football factory? Just straight up and up. Be straight with me.
It was good.
Yeah?
The only difference from the old days is, obviously, because you'd need a terrible amount of extras.
Yeah.
You were talking like 30s to 50s fighting it. In the old days, it was hundreds, if not thousands.
London's burning!
When I was 18, I had a cracked skull, 2 broken cheekbones, lost 12 teeth, broken nose, broken jaw, 4 broken ribs, and a broken collarbone, internal bleeding. And I still got up. We've got guys, like friends of ours, ex-boxers, ex-martial arts. We got ex-army special forces guys. So we got some naughty people.
My journey through London's firm starts with Millwall. Historically, they have one of the most feared hooligan reputations in the country, never mind the capital. A trawl through the newspaper archives reveals an unparalleled history of hooliganism at Millwall. The old Den was closed by the FA more than any other ground, 5 times between 1920 and 1978. And in the 70s, their hooligans were profiled in the first TV attempt to explain this rise in football violence.
In the trench warfare of the terraces, it's F Troop who go over the top. F Troop are the real nutters.
And I'm not going away for some dirty northern punts to spit all over me. If he spits over me, I'll put a fucking pint glass in his head.
Self-confessed loonies like Harry the dog, who go looking for fights and are seldom disappointed.
Well, we want to do a few geezes out there, like. We're the F Troop, see what I mean? We'll have a round, we go football. And this is it.
So a bit more about the F Troop and all, Bob. Like, obviously, proper firm, yeah? You know, you was one of the top boys, yeah?
F Troop are guys who were absolutely ruthless. A lot of them psychopaths, no fear whatsoever. You're talking about a firm which didn't have big numbers. We used to go into ends, 10, 20, 30 hand and take on the whole end.
The papers called it a terrace rampage. It was caused by a dozen or so of Millwall's nutters charging 2,000 Tottenham fans. 3 of them ended up in court and 1 in hospital. To the terrace gangland, they're the Millwall boot boys, feared and respected wherever they go, a fame infamously acquired.
It was a social documentary. We were just trying to tell the country and the world what we're all about, working class boys. Well, it come across like we're all like violent psychopaths. All right, we was, but there's other facets to the story. It's a total social working class like guy from South East London. What's happened? The London people, the Cockney, they've moved out slightly to the outskirts, with the exception of Bermondsey and Rotherhithe. Bermondsey and Rotherhithe, this area, you've still got poor white people who can't afford to move out. We're all like a family. I've known guys for 30, 35 years. They're just like brothers to me, and it's like a family, blood brothers.
Now this little manor I'm in now, right, which is a naughty manor. You got to hold your hands up here, Bob. Do you feel lucky to be a Millwall fan? Would you like to walk down here as an away firm? I mean, don't get no worse than this, I don't think.
It's not good, no. It's not clever.
Not nice, is it? It's very fucking naughty, isn't it, at the end of the day? After losing to Birmingham in the 2002 playoffs, 900 Millwall fans went on the rampage. More than 100 policemen were injured.
Outside Millwall's ground, the aftermath of a night of hooliganism, police say, was among the worst violence they'd ever seen.
Well, it's the sort of place, and you come out, you've got to make sure you have a police escort or you get straight into your coach, because if you get lost and you walk around the streets, anything's liable to happen. People are liable to come out of their houses if they think you're another support to possibly attack you. So it's not the sort of place to be if you don't know where you are. Very unsafe place. When I was a kid, I'd look at all the leaders of Millwall, the top guys, and I thought, I want to be like them. Look at the power they got. They got a big gang. They go to a pub. They don't even have to buy for a drink. If you go out socially afterwards with some of the boys, sometimes the local girls in the area, you get girls. You're a famous name and all that. It's the whole sort of. It's a bit like bling bling in a way, but to do with the football.
Bob, straight, I don't know regrets for you. Is there any regrets for the life you've led?
If I'm a time again, I wouldn't go along the same path.
Okay.
But, having said that, working class boy out the Elephant and Castle, the old man take me to the club. I followed the team religiously. It's like a religion. It still is to people.
Absolutely.
Fighting in the firm from the age of 11. I'm now just coming up to 48, 37 years, but I'm like retired now. You had to prove to the top guy, the leaders at the time, that you could rise to the top. It's like rising through the ranks. Absolutely. So you had to be able to perform to get right to the top.
Millwall has been involved in one of the most intense rivalries in London for the last 30 years, and their hated enemy is West Ham.
On platform 4, a scuffle developed when gangs of Millwall and West Ham supporters tried to snatch each other's scarves as trophies.
West Ham's firm came to the fore in the 80s. Their name became synonymous with organised football violence. This was them in their heyday. They were known as the Intercity Firm, the ICF. And one of their top boys was Cass Pennant.
Oh, fucking mouth as usual, kiddies. Kiddie firm.
This is Fortress Upton Park. All right? Millwall have come in 1978 Judgment Day. It's just pure hate, yeah. Right? This is the most violent derby of all. This is the one the helicopter was up in the air. Yeah, they're the biggest police turnout. But you want to know about West Ham Millwall because the day they talk about Tottenham as their rivals, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people forget their history. It's always been them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only them.
In the world of the football firms, the ICF commanded huge respect wherever they went.
The ICF is initials for the Intercity Firm, yeah. It was a sinister name, call sign for the violent followed West Ham originally. Eventually it became so infamous that normal West Ham supporters adopted it because everyone just knew them by that name.
It formed when young Hammers hooligans dodged the normal transport for away games, the football specials, and took intercity trains instead, using student rail cards and discount tickets.
Like a couple hundred, like West Ham's top boys were using the Intercity, and like now was the cream, and now was getting all the rows and everything. But when it went nationwide at West Ham was when Purcell come out. They started introducing free tickets or cheap tickets for the intercity trains while collecting Purcell tickets and things like that. Well now, like, you know what I mean, everyone could afford to use the intercity. Jimmy Savile's Student Railway card, that was a godsend, you know what I mean? It covered the football season.
It's interesting that in the early 80s, how the football culture, the hooligan culture started to change, almost, certainly paralleling, but almost reflecting the new mood of Thatcherism, in that everything became more organised and businesslike. And whereas before, going to football, having a punch-up and having a pint and a pie or whatever, it was all just that, it became almost like a military precision involved in the organisation of it.
Right, turn right, the bones are going right.
The fact that this group of people call themselves a firm rather than a gang or a troop or a crew, you know, which is the standard nomenclature of these things, illustrates in a sense that what they've done is to incorporate this sort of new corporate model, you know, of business and success and the Thatcherite dream and so on. So they presented this kind of image as a new kind of football thug, a football thug that travelled first class on the train to Leeds to away games and so on. So with that goes little accoutrements like, you know, the business cards, the visiting cards and so on. So after you stomped on some poor rival's head or something like that, you can just leave him a little card to explain who provided that service for him.
It's a tongue-in-cheek thing from Crafty Cockneys. When you read it, you can see, you know?
You got to hold your hands up, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? That's cheeky.
Dan, you've got to look, remember like the Terrences, they didn't know what ICF. Following season, the whole world knows what's the ICF. So they're giving it, where's your famous ICF, yeah? They're screaming through the bars for the Northern Eight, where's your famous ICF, you know? And the Crafty Cockneys are going up with the business card, there you go, pal, you know what I mean? We're here, you know? It's just style, it's just Cockney style, you know?
In 1985, the ICF were immortalised in a definitive hooligan documentary. Director Ian Stuttard spent 6 months inside the West Ham firm, gaining their confidence and respect.
Here they continue to trade insults with the Chelsea mob. They seem oblivious of the effect on the other travellers.
I think the general perception, both through the media and through politicians, was that hooligans were rampant wild animals who were attacked innocent men, women and children on the street, willy-nilly on their way to games and so on, and that it was a completely riotous disorder. Of course, what I subsequently learned was that that was completely not the case.
Lads, sinners everywhere. We've had it.
All I was reading about was the violence. And I knew all along there's more than just the violence behind this. Yeah, the violence isn't the last 90 seconds, the match is 90 minutes. There's so much more going on behind this. When I listened to Butch, I knew this is the man who could put across a social history before it's lost.
You know, a lot of racism around my man, especially around Custom House. What was it like with you being a black man in a right white environment?
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, the East End took me on like adopted son, you know. You got to think like, I've got memories going back before you was born, standing in the shed. Yeah, when Clyde Best put 2 past Chelsea and we're all standing in the shed, you know what I mean? Yeah, and, you know, Clyde Best put the goals in and I'm in the shed with the boys, you know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't have to buy a drink all week, you know what I mean? And but being black, I'll tell you what's being black was the moment I left Upton Park, yeah? The moment I left Upton Park with West Ham mates, I was black, I was nigger, I was wog, I was everything you could think of, yeah? But all the time I was Upton Park, I was just clout and blue, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A group of you go off on a train or by car, away to some place that you don't even know, where you know there is going to be a hostile reception, which could and more than likely will turn into violence.
Are they Manchester, this lot? I wrote about it.
The anticipation of that, the adrenaline that abounds in those situations is fantastic. When we look for huge sociological reasons behind this, I don't think there are. I think young men like to fight.
The ICF even had their own band, the Cockney Rejects, who definitely weren't afraid to have a row. They had 2 top 40 hits in 1980, and their gigs were a magnet for football hooligans up and down the country.
The thing about the Cockney Rejects they were the ultimate football band. I mean, you look at you're looking about bands that played terrace punk or whatever it was called at the time. They were the ones who meant it the most. They were the ones who were the most identical with their audience. They had the same taste, the same interest, the same passion, and obviously the passion for West Ham drove them tremendously to the extent they wrote about 4 songs about West Ham in the first 2 albums.
Right, here's my rendition of West Side Boys, probably the most infamous West Ham song. We meet in the bowling every Saturday. We talk about the teams that we're gonna do today. We're not the North Bank, we're not the South Bank, we are the West Side Upton Park.
Still kept Dr. Martens and iron bars, smashed the coaches and do them in the cars. This was a psychopath's anthem, wasn't it? I can't believe EMI put it out.
The Rejects are legendary where I come from in East London. Whenever they went on tour, the cream of the ICF followed. This led to an all-out riot at a gig in Birmingham.
The ICF are behind us. We must have been about 22, 23-handed. So there's 500 in this gig, it's packed. But not all the 500 want to row. There's got to be 200.
200
so we're at the front and they keep on. I remember there was a geezer with a Villa tattoo, like that skinhead, and he kept going, fucking wanker, wanker.
We thought so. It was very unusual
Yeah.
to Villa and Birmingham City to be under one roof united in the first place.
So they kept on, we'd stop after a couple of gigs. Then someone, I think they threw a pint glass or something. Wrong move, because I said, whoever threw that, I said, we'll stop the gig now. I said, I'll take you outside one-on-one, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's never going to happen, but that's what you say at the time. So now all of a sudden, we played on again and things were really getting bad. Then we ended one song, we went to start the next one, I couldn't hear the guitar. What was the guitar? And I turned around, Mick, where are you? I turned around, Mick's in the audience, like just going smash, crash, bosh, just going right off. So that was it, like, we was down in amongst them. We drove them back, but we drove them back to the bar, which was like for them. Then all of a sudden they've got the glasses, the ashtrays.
They started tooling up.
Mick was standing next to me and I always remember it. It was like a UFO, flying saucer, like this big glass ashtray. One of these buggers, like, come hurtling towards, like that. It was me and Mick. I thought, who's it going to do? All of a sudden it hit Mick right there, like, bosh, like Claret and Blue Army, straight out. Well, that was like red rag to a ball.
It was the worst example of gig violence ever seen in Britain. It was the Rejects and their away firm, 30 of them, ended up battling a hostile crowd of 10 times their number. And I likened it to a rock and roll equivalent of Rorke's Drift, because that's how brutal and bloody and how outnumbered they were. Yeah, but they won.
In the 80s, violence was everywhere. After the break, we'll see how it erupted to new highs. London's tube network is famous the world over. Without it, the city would grind to a halt. But back in the 80s, it was a battleground on Saturday afternoons as London's firms clashed on the way to and from matches. I don't know if you've ever seen a film called The Warriors. It's about a New York gang travelling through the city by subway, bumping into rival mobs along the way. Proper film. Now that's pretty much what it was like here in the 80s, as rival firms fought battles at train stations like King's Cross and Euston.
That was what it was like every Saturday in London back at that time in the early 80s, because different firms would be travelling to different football matches using the same rail network and tube system, and you'd always bump into other firms.
The mid-80s was a heyday for the London hooligan. Their love-hate relationship with the media meant we knew the names of these football firms. It was just, where's it all going to end? In 1985, Millwall faced Luton in a quarter-final of the Cup. Now, the last time Millwall reached this stage of the competition, it ended in a riot at the Den. So what unfolded at Kenilworth Road was so violent, so dramatic, football would never quite be the same again.
Last night saw some of the worst scenes of...
Old teacher being ripped up and the teacher coming out on that far side of the field now.
Millwall's visit to Luton resulted in the most violent scenes ever televised at a football game. 700 seats were torn from the stands and thrown onto the pitch. and a policeman was given the kiss of life in the centre circle.
Today at Luton, they're clearing up and counting the cost of a game of football against Millwall.
50 years I've been here, and that's the first time.
I heard them saying, we lost. Come on, start, grab anything, break everything and break everything you see in front of you.
Daylight and the full extent of the damage, the ground was plain to see.
Luton's firm, known as the MIGs, tried to stand up against this invasion of their town, and a 17-year-old Tommy Robinson was among them.
This is the end that was given to the Millwall fans that night. Normally that would hold 5,000 to 6,000. That night there had to be in excess of 8,000 or 9,000 people here trying to get into that ground. The potential for violence was in the air everywhere.
It was Millwall supporters behaving bad, I suppose. It was a Luton club not being able to organise the match. It was the Luton turnstile operators, right? It was the police not being able to control the situation and organise it.
There was a skip position right there which we emptied onto them to hold them back where we could here, as long as we could, until they appeared from that road down there as well. I knew Crystal Palace were down here. We know guys that went to Chelsea, we knew they were coming. We saw Arsenal at the bottom of the road. I even knew guys from Kent that came out. So then we backed off to that corner. A group of lads jump up with you and all you hear the words EIE, Gooners, who wants it? You just think, fucking hell, how much more have we got to do today?
Millwall's got a lot of sleeping supporters that only go to the big games, and most of them are hooligans. They wait for the big games and they'll turn up en masse.
We still don't say Millwall overran us, we just say London and the South East overran us that day.
Then people turn and say it must be other teams. It's not other teams, it's just all our sleeping supporters come back.
When you're hearing stories of people having an ear bitten off, with the sirens in the background, ambulances, police not being very, very apparent, no control, it weren't great, let's just put it that way. It's horrible.
Really, if you know there's going to be a disaster, they should have called the game off and had it replayed another time. They should have called the game off.
These events took place against the backdrop of increased mob violence across the UK. The miners' strike in '84, the death of PC Blakelock in the Tottenham riots in '85. The authorities were going to clamp down on football violence, and clamp down hard. In a series of high-profile police operations, firms were targeted the length and breadth of the country, including West Ham, Millwall and Chelsea. Among those arrested was the ICF's Cass Pennant, but cases collapsed amidst claims of falsifying evidence. 80s faces like Cass called it a day, and as the 90s began, it was a very different world for the firms. Undercover surveillance, CCTV and banning orders were now the norm. Firms had to adapt to tougher times, but hooliganism didn't disappear altogether. At this point, it's worth remembering the storyline to the Football Factory film. Chelsea drawing Millwall in the Cup guaranteed a tear-up. In 1995, this actually happened.
At Stamford Bridge, Chelsea fans dragged the name of London football further into the mud. Mounted police charged onto the pitch after rivals Millwall beat Chelsea 5-4 in a dramatic penalty shootout in an FA Cup replay.
I thought and I'd hoped that we'd actually confined this to 10 or 15 years or so ago.
Crowd violence was nothing new at Chelsea's Stamford Bridge ground. In the 70s and 80s, it kicked off inside and outside the stadium, and their hooligan fans, the Chelsea Headhunters, gained a fearsome reputation across the country. In the mid-90s, Chelsea's improved performance on the pitch meant they were now playing in Europe again, and their fans' reputation preceded them. In Bruges, Belgian riot police made it clear that accept no nonsense. During this period, one of Chelsea's main faces was Jason Mariner.
Obviously, in the early 80s, everyone give each other names, you know what I mean, or give themselves names.
What?
Ours was the Headhunters.
How'd that come about? What was it? What was it?
I don't know, to be true. Well, I couldn't tell you who started it off, you know what I mean? If I was to say who started off, I'd be lying. But whoever come up with it, I think it was blinding, do you know what I mean? You know?
For a section of Chelsea's fans today, Jason's achieved a kind of celebrity status. He's even asked to autograph DVDs about his hooligan career.
they should bring back the shed days. They were the best times.
Exactly.
There you go, mate.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
And you.
See you, mate. Have a good day, yeah? Have a good day,
Cheers.
mate. Yeah, see ya.
So you was one of the top boys then, yeah?
I wouldn't say I was a top boy. I was a respected lad at Chelsea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, see at Chelsea, we're like a family. No one says, "Oh, I'm the top kiddie." You know what I mean? You just
no one allocates themselves as the top.
No, you just you have a bit of respect for each other. And how do you feel about meeting here? What do you think about this?
Becoming an hooligan, yeah. What was it for you? What was it growing up? Is it you always were violent or what? You just wanted to tear up? What was it?
I believe it starts from an early age. You know, I've always maintained that schools fight schools, different boroughs fight different boroughs, different housing estates fight different housing estates, you know, and so on. You know what I mean? Different boys' clubs fight different boys' clubs, and you know, I support Chelsea, you support West Ham. You're passionate. You're passionate about where you come from, who you support. You know, you believe.
Your manner, isn't it, really?
Yeah, your manner, your territory. You don't want people taking liberties. You know, you don't say, oh, listen, I'm an hooligan, I'm a Chelsea headhunter. No. You go to football, you have the crack, you have a few light owls, or you don't have a light owl. And if you ain't had a row, it ain't the fucking end of the world, do you know what I mean? It's a bit better nowadays because Chelsea are playing, you know, I mean, top elite, you know what I mean? But, you know, to be honest with you, I used to fucking love Division 2, you know what I mean? You know, the gaffs you used to go to are sore, but unbelievable.
But so it was proper naughty before the CCTV.
Yeah, it was proper, you know, that's why it hit the media so much. That's why I believe that there's so much hype surrounding the football violence.
In the 90s, increased security in and around the grounds meant that firms took their battles to the surrounding streets and neighbourhoods. In this era of the CCTV camera, the reputation of one firm continued to grow.
We're the stars of CCTV, making movies out on the street. We're the stars of CCTV, can't you see the camera loves me?
It was time for me to meet Tottenham's Yid Army.
Okay, so look, this is the 1990s. You became one of the top boys, yeah?
That's it.
How does that come about, son?
Do you know, being brutal, mate, it just comes about, it comes about through respect, and it comes about through, through my actions over the years, you know what I mean?
Yeah. What, no proper moment for you when you thought, right, this is a bit of me, do you know what I mean?
I'll tell you, yeah, about 10 years ago, we had it with Man City on the pavement. I remember someone turning around and saying, mate, that's it, mate, you've done it, you know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, this is me, do you know what I mean? This is fucking what I'm about, you know? And, and be truthful, I set out to do that, and set out to bring our firm together, which I've succeeded, you know?
Tottenham, a club with traditionally strong links to North London's Jewish community, has a hooligan history going back more than 30 years. In 1974, Tottenham fans were the first to export the English disease abroad, rioting at the UEFA Cup final against Feyenoord in Holland.
About the Yids, where'd that come from?
Yids is something, I'll tell you something, I used to fucking despise that name, yeah? Long time ago, it really gave me the ump. It's one of them things, Dan, West Ham, Chelsea used to go, Yids, you fucking dirty Yids and all that, and I used to find it quite offensive, you know?
Yeah, and, that's what I thought, that's how I booked it, you know what I mean?
But what it was, whereas other firms had like a proper defined name, like fucking, Headhunters, ICF, whatever, we sort of like adopted the Yids. I mean, all the barmies used to fucking do it in the ground, Yids and all that carry on. And as the firm, progressed, and over the last 10 years, it's got stronger and closer. We have got I ain't just being biased. We've had the naughtiest firm in the country over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And that name has just been adopted.
Your arch rivals, right?
Yeah.
Now, I would say Arsenal. Yeah.
Ain't
no, is it?
No.
Ain't no, is it?
Not the firm. No.
Who would it be?
Not this Chelsea.
It's Chelsea. Yeah.
Without a fucking doubt. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And in a way, you know what I mean. I do respect their firm because we've had wars with them for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking hate Chelsea. Everyone knows that. But I respect them because we've had wars with them for the last 10 years, you know what I mean? They're the only people that have really come to us, you know what I mean? And sort of like, well, we've gone to them all the time, but anyone who's given us any competition.
The rivalry between the Spurs and Chelsea firms became headline news when they clashed outside the Ifield Tavern near Stamford Bridge. 200 of Tottenham's firm gathered at nearby pubs, then left at a given time and marched onto Ifield Road.
And Chelsea were at the bottom of the road. It was just something you fucking dream about, really, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Something I dream about, you know what I mean? Not everyone else does, you know? Give them their due, they stood their ground. But the boozer got annihilated. Yeah, there was a lot of claret about, it was a lot of, got messy.
Yeah. It's obviously been much tougher for the firms and all that, what with the old CCTV and the old bill and all that. Have you got your nut round that?
It's a nightmare, mate.
I mean, I got my nut around it, but I ended up doing 3 years inside, didn't I? Do you know what I mean? So I got put away with Tottenham, Chelsea. That was all on camera. I mean, it's the operation they used to get hold of me. Was like something that you see on films. You don't think it happens in real life. I mean, there was old Bill dressed as workmen, carpenters and all that outside West Kensington Station.
Proper surveillance.
Yeah, and then like up above the boozer we met in, there was a camera crew filming the whole thing. And then 2 weeks later, door come off and I copped 3 years. You know what I mean? So yes, but you know, it's on a different level now. The way the old Bill deal with everything is because there's grasses everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they obviously tell him what's going on, and that's how it gets done.
It was over in just 2 minutes, but after hours spent playing back this video, police gleaned enough evidence to jail 7 of the hooligans. An arsenal of weapons, from koshers to CS gas canisters to snooker balls, was found in and around the pub and produced in court.
I would stress though, it's not just for the sake of having a row. It's people that know what they're doing, do you know what I mean? You're having a row with other like-minded people, you know? We're not going in and having a fucking row with kicking someone up in the head because he's wearing a different shirt, or, you know, I despise fuckers like that, you know what I mean?
It wasn't just the police that infiltrated these London firms. In the 90s, the media also became the enemy from within. The Chelsea Headhunters were targeted in a high-profile documentary by undercover reporter Donald McIntyre. Jason Mariner was one of 2 men imprisoned after its screening. He was sentenced to 6 years after being found guilty of conspiracy to commit violent disorder and affray. He was accused of arranging a clash with Leicester fans and trying to disrupt a London march to mark the Bloody Sunday shootings in Northern Ireland. He was released in 2004. Mariner's story reflects the new world of the hooligan. In the 70s and 80s, documentary makers were invited into the firms to understand this hooligan culture. But that changed in the high-tech 90s, the era of secret cameras and undercover exposés.
We'll talk a bit about the media and Chelsea and all that.
Yeah.
What's the relationship, obviously?
What, with me personally? Lovely. Come to the wedding reception, yeah. The old Bill ain't even got to be there. You know, they got their informants or they got their police intelligence or whatever. They half know where it's going down. Let's put it this way. If something happens and it's on camera, you're nicked. Within the firms, there's probably a lot of paranoia. You know what I mean? You know, that camera's on me, he's old Bill, he's this, he's that. To wear a covert camera, I could be wearing one now and you wouldn't know. So I can be filming you. It's that easy. If anyone thinks I was fool enough to fall for McIntyre, they're totally mistaken. But that's what you're up against as well. You know, you've only got to be walking past me or standing next to me in a pub. Anyone, you know, catch my conversation. But I'm not bitter, and that's life. Say la vie, you know, what can you do? Fluent, and I'm French.
After the break, we look at the situation today as Spurs visit Chelsea, a tense local derby. Are the police in control, or do hooligans still exist in the capital?
CCTV, can't you see the camera loves me?
British Transport Police oversee the traffic of football fans through London's tube networks on Saturday afternoons. They monitor potential flashpoints, and today, Spurs are visiting Chelsea, an intense London derby. While Millwall were playing at Ipswich, this could throw up problems when they head home to the capital.
In terms of disorder in clubs and in and around grounds, it's largely, there are exceptions to this, but it's largely a thing of the past. Fairly good order is kept at most grounds at most times.
If they're going to have a meet, they will try and fight away from the ground. And one of the reasons they'll try to fight away from the ground is because if they can divorce it from a football-related incident, then it's harder for us to ping a football banning order on them.
But it's becoming increasingly more difficult because the fans are using internet technology to stay in touch, using phones to stay in touch, and to arrange these fights and to arrange this disorder.
Calm down, temper, we just don't get so annoyed when you're acting like a silly little boy.
Police spotters track Chelsea and Spurs fans after the game, and hardcore Spurs have been spotted in central London.
We've seen some of the Tottenham people that we know moving around on the railway system, and we've trawled around the pubs and found a group. That group have now disappeared, and so we're looking to find them again. It's possible that they've gone home, it's possible that there won't be any problems, but we just need to make sure.
Then news comes through of problems involving Millwall fans on the train home from Ipswich.
We're just deploying some officers out onto the platform so we can meet them in, and if the officers who are currently on there wish to make the arrests, we're there to provide support and make sure that everything stays at a suitable level of sensibility.
3 arrests were made for racial aggravated public disorder.
They're going to take them into custody now, and if they're found guilty, they'll be banned from taking part in attending any football matches for a significant length of time. In essence, they've just ruined the World Cup.
Just a week later, Chelsea's visit to Fulham sparked pitch invasions and headlines not seen in London for years.
Now, there were angry scenes tonight as fans invaded the pitch after Chelsea suffered only their 3rd Premiership defeat of the season, losing 1-0 at Fulham.
Today it seems that the threat of football violence still hangs over the capital. Our fascination with the subject has led to books, films, even audiences with, revealing the inside story to these London firms.
I'll do a thing an audience with now, you know what I mean? You know, just have a laugh and a joke, talk about the old days for the people that want to open their eyes on it.
People, you know, that will get off and reading a book like that because they've never done anything like this in their lives, you know? Like people read about gangsters and read about train robberies, but they're not going to go and do something like that in their lives. They're going to go home to their wife and their kids and they're going to do whatever, you know? You go back 100 years, you know, people are fascinated with the underworld, if you like, you know what I mean? You know, or put the dark side of things, you know?
Now these firms look for the youth element to continue the story. In the case of Tottenham's Yid Army, the mantle passes from Trevor Tanner to the next generation. They've agreed to talk to us if we protect their identities.
Obviously, we've grown up supporting Tottenham, and obviously we've seen sort of rows as we're growing up, and we've always wanted to be part of it. And now we believe that obviously Tottenham Youth is one of the best youth firms in the country.
A lot of other teams, like firms and that, you can just get mugged off like by the older lot, but we were sort of welcomed in, everyone's treated us well, like no one's sort of like said, oh, we're not welcome sort of thing. It's just a lot of respect there, like a lot of respect from Trevor and that. Like.
They've sort of paved the way for us, and now obviously we want to carry on in the same way they have over the last few years or so, and keep the Tottenham firm alive and the best in London.
Football violence provided a rich storyline for the film The Football Factory. This is where I got battered. Right here. But the reality for these football firms today is severe bird, or turning up at a police station on match day. When hooliganism still exists, it may always exist. It's just it seems that Big Brother definitely has the upper hand. I think the one thing I've learnt more than anything else about the firms of the 70s, the 80s is you're witnessing a social history of working class culture. It's, you know, the lifestyle, the fashion, I mean, like it or not, it definitely has its place in that history of the capital. And I mean, if you think about it, these former hooligans, they don't need the media to tell their stories. They're becoming authors, they're becoming successful publishers. It's like the lunatics have taken over the asylum. Listen, I'll see you next time on the real football factories, and wait, you mind, there you go.
Fucking Football Factory was the biggest load of old shit I've ever fucking come across. But Danny's a nice fella.